Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Manufacturing Talks. I'm Jim Vinosky. I've got a great show because it's a topic I've been hitting on routinely. It's all about the workforce challenge. I'm not going to steal my guest's thunder and use the name that he's bringing. So listen for that. It's a great way to refer to it. But he is bringing us some really great ideas on how to understand and deal with this workforce challenge we have with losing lots of skilled people and not having the skills behind them coming in. And so Colin Dowd, he's with a company called Armanino. They're an accounting and consultancy outfit and very deep into the details on this particular challenge. So bringing great stuff. He's going to be with us in just a few seconds. So stay tuned here on Manufacturing Talks.
Welcome to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. Industry has a million cool stories, and Jim talks to the movers and shakers who are making them happen. Let's dive in.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Manufacturing Talks. I'm Jim Vinosky, your host. I am joined today by Colin Dowd. So he is the head of strategy head of strategy for manufacturing and distribution for a company called Armanino. Welcome, Colin.
Thank you so much, Jim. I'm very happy to be here. Very happy to be here. Long-time listener, first-time collaborator.
Beautiful. And we are very happy to have you. You've got an important topic. And we're going to dive in deep on this one because it's something that I'm personally interested in. And I know you bring a wealth of knowledge about it. But before we do that, why don't you just tell us about yourself?
Absolutely. So I kind of fell into manufacturing. Like I feel like a lot of people have kind of discussed as well when
Yep.
they're on this show here.
Right.
Growing up, I was always a kind of kid who loved to create things and solve problems and different things like that. So went off to go to college, and then obviously I majored in communication, which didn't really help a solution-oriented kid in the slightest. But I ended up accepting the first job that was offered to me, which was actually in the industrial laundry space.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so. uh, yeah, it was a very interesting industry, not exactly for me, however. But I learned a
Got it.
lot about things like logistics. But again, the industry just wasn't what I was looking for. And so I took the advice that seems like everybody who is a younger person receives at some point, and that is to go into technology.
Oh, yeah.
And so I made the pivot, worked for a couple of technology startups for a period of time, but again, just something wasn't clicking for me. And so around that time, I had a recruiter reach out and say that there was a consulting position opened at the National Association for Electrical Distribution.
Hmm.
And at that time, I had absolutely no idea what electrical distribution was. I barely even knew what electrical was. But the position seemed like it was really interesting. And it kind of went back to, like I said earlier, that whole love of solving problems and
Hmm.
everything like that. So from the moment I accepted that position and really got into the industry, I realized that manufacturing was exactly what I was missing. When I was there, I worked with manufacturers and distributors in the electrical space, ranging from Fortune 500 companies all the way to independent mom and pop stores, and dealing with a variety of issues. Really, I found that I kind of um, worked very well with kind of post M&A culture integration. So after
Right.
a company was purchased, finding ways to make them feel comfortable when they were in, and it was around that time that I finished my MBA as well. I wrote that thesis on the industrial manufacturing landscape and kind of some of the trends that I saw coming. Granted, that was before COVID, so a lot of it was moot by the end, but it was again a great time. And then I had another recruiter reach out telling me about this new company called Armanino. Well, rather new to me company
Yep.
called Armanino that I was very much interested in, and here we are.
So it's really interesting. You're the communications guy that worked his way over to the technical end of the world, and I'm a guy from the manufacturing side, an engineer who has worked my way to the communications realm.
Exactly, great intersection here.
Well, so that being said, then tell us about Armanino.
Absolutely. So we are a top 20 accounting and consulting firm.
Okay.
So we primarily focus on things like tax and audit and consulting, obviously, like I said there. And our consulting arm is extremely broad. So we do everything that you can imagine, really everything from ERP integrations all the way to strategy and transformation work, and everything in between. So if you've got a business need, we have the way to solve it.
Cool. Yeah, and I imagine that touches on a lot of different things, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, any given day, we can work with somebody who's getting a new ERP system or trying to find out more about sustainability initiatives at their firm or different things like that. And like I
Yeah.
said, no 2 days are ever the same in the consulting end. That's for sure.
I believe it. So that being said, what you're here to talk about today is something that I've actually been hitting on for a while, and that is the workforce challenge. So
Mhm.
give us kind of where that came from for you and your top line, and then we can start kind of peeling back the layers of the onion from there.
Absolutely. So when I was working for an AED, the association, previously, I worked with a lot of HR individuals when I was doing that post M&A kind of culture integration portions here, and they would always talk about again, while we've got a current workforce issue, it's nothing compared to what they see down the line.
Mhm.
And I had a lot of questions on that, and they told me, well, at this point here. I mean, at that point, rather, the baby boomers were all getting ready to retire, and there was going to be a pretty significant gap in our workforce that we were very unprepared for. So I guess to dig into kind of that they call it the silver tsunami. I wish I came up with that name, but unfortunately I did not. But the entire concept behind it is that here within the next 5 years, anybody who is a baby boomer is going to be at or surpassing retirement age.
Yep.
And that is expected to be about 25% of the current United States workforce. So 25% of the current workforce is getting ready to retire. And it's going to probably hit manufacturing a little bit harder than some of these other industries for sure.
No doubt. Yeah. And we'll touch on the reasons for that. I love the name, and I wish I had come up with it too, but I'm
Right?
totally stealing it and using it from here on out. The silver tsunami, because to me it's just so descriptive of what I've been trying to convey to people is, and you touched on it as well, is we've got a problem now, and that's not only not going away, it's going to get worse for the
Absolutely.
reasons
The,
you just talked
the
about.
Right. The way that I look at it is if you think of your current workforce challenges, which I'm sure everybody in this industry is having, we've got about a 500,000 open manufacturing jobs right now. Multiply that times about five. And that's what's expected to be the impact of this tsunami here in the next 5 years. 2.1 million jobs are expected to be created by uh, this exit of the workforce. Plus, on top of that, you have the current workforce challenges of the, like I said, 500,000 jobs. Plus, as manufacturing is growing in the next 5 years, we're going to see even more jobs created because of that. So everything
It's
compounding.
growing and getting more technically challenging.
Absolutely,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yep. What I always hit on is, we were talking the numbers thing, obviously, but the boomers going uh, more and more out. We don't have the sheer numbers to replace that biggest generation ever. Plus, it was the last generation that had trades and manufacturing held out as a desirable place to be,
For
right?
sure, definitely.
And so there's that trained skills gap. But even beyond that, it's also the last generation in my mind that really uniformly and almost universally did stuff like working on their own cars, doing
Mhm.
home projects with their parents, getting low level technical skills just in the way they live their lives that doesn't happen anymore.
Absolutely. It's that age of working with your hands, doing everything
Yeah.
yourself instead of paying somebody else to do it. Very
Mhm.
much a mindset shift for sure.
Yeah. And we compounded the problem by educators deciding, okay, we're going to be a service economy. Let's steer everyone to college and away from the trades. Maybe they had the best of intentions, but
Mhm.
now we're truly paying the price, right?
Absolutely. And again, even like you said earlier, with some of the advent of technology, we're seeing people learn skills like coding
Yeah.
instead of things like metal forming.
Yep.
It's just a very different environment, like you said.
It really is. Yeah. And it's an environment where more and more we in industry are going to have to create the solutions for ourselves, right?
Mhm.
There's no one coming to save
Absolutely.
us.
Right. Right. For sure.
So let's dive into it a little more. We hit on a couple of things of why it has such a greater impact in manufacturing and the industrial world. Um, dig a little deeper into that. What are the particular things that are needs now and going forward 5 or 10 years, where this is just going to be so much greater a problem in the world where I reside?
Absolutely. I think one of the main things, and anybody who's worked in the manufacturing industry can probably tell you, the average age of individuals working in the manufacturing industry is significantly older than some of the other ones.
Yep.
If you look at the average worker in America, we're looking at an age somewhere around 40, 41. The average age of somebody in manufacturing is closer to 45 or 46. So the average age is just significantly higher in the manufacturing industry. And like you talked about earlier, there's a lot of skills in the manufacturing industry that are um, very specialized. Not exactly something that you can immediately just teach anybody off the street. There's a little bit of additional stuff that has to go into it, like you said.
Yep.
So I think kind of the intersection of those two things is part of the reason, like I said, why manufacturing is going to be hit a little bit harder than some of these other folks.
When we talk about some of those skills that you think about from a legacy manufacturing perspective, and then you look at greater levels of automation, how is that going to play as far as that numbers and skills gap with the workforce?
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time? You
Yeah,
kind of
so
broke
so
up
we
on my
talked
end.
about
Sorry.
the skills that were needed in more of the old style of manufacturing, and now we've
Mhm.
said it's going to get more technically involved. Um, how does that play with this silver tsunami that we're facing?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I'm not as much an expert on that portion, but I think you can look to some of the broader trends when you're looking to stuff like that. Obviously, automation is becoming a necessity for a lot of
Yeah,
these places in order to really function at the highest level possible. And if you don't have somebody who has that knowledge base of being able to train your automation or anything like that, then you're going to have some new types of issues
yeah.
that you might not have had previously, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. I'm smiling because you started off by saying you're not an expert, and yet your answer is so illuminating. It kind of crystallized things. Automation is going to become necessary to help fill the gap.
Hmm.
And yet it creates that catch 22 because now we're pushing things to a higher level from a technology standpoint. We already said we don't have the numbers even to fill the gaps we have now. And it's only going to get worse in that respect. So it's just like these multiple threads that are all kind of working against us. Multiple
Absolutely.
waves, I guess I should say, right? But the tsunami.
Absolutely. You solve one problem, you've got another. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. Now, that being said, are there any other facets of this challenge that industry leaders are missing or aren't necessarily aware of, or have we just covered those?
I think there's definitely some things that people aren't necessarily aware of from a planning perspective. I think, just in general, the industry could focus a lot more on succession planning,
Yep.
but not just at an executive level. They need to make sure that all of their skills have some kind of next step coverage. We have, like you said earlier, this um, danger of losing some of our significant knowledge that the baby boomers have, and I think that kind of pairs into this kind of understanding, and Jim, we talked on this a little bit earlier, that people understand that this is an issue, but I don't really
Yep.
think they understand the impact of how much it's going to impact their business.
Right.
If you do it correctly, if you prepare for everything correctly, you're not going to notice the silver tsunami. You're going to be able to navigate everything perfectly. However, if you think this is tomorrow's problem, then you're going to get hit really hard.
Yeah. And um, what I've been fond of saying is that it's like this triple whammy we're being faced with, right? It's we touched on the education that the boomers had and the
Mhm.
numbers, um, and the fact that you don't have those skills in the people coming into the workforce. And so, to me, kind of what you're talking about is that need for people in industry to understand what they're going to have to do to develop that incoming workforce that looks really different from what they did with previous generations.
Absolutely. A lot of people that I've spoken with when they're trying to create some kind of system to navigate this have implemented a type of like mentorship program
Mhm.
where some of those older individuals have worked closely with some of the new people and taught them not just the necessary skills, but what it means kind of in the broader scope of their industries. I think back to distribution when of some of the older salespeople would be able to tell the younger people, okay, they're ordering these parts, but because they're working on this type of project, they're probably also going to need XYZ as
Mhm.
well. And here's what that means to you as the salesperson in this
Yep.
situation.
Yep. Yeah, I did some study on how people learn and are educated, and there's a term called tacit knowledge, and
Mhm.
that's, essentially know-how that isn't captured on paper.
Right.
And what you're saying, it just hits that so perfectly. The people who are going out carry so much in their heads that we're completely unaware of, and so that direct connection, that mentorship can pull some of that knowledge
Absolutely.
out and capture it.
And I think it's that tacit knowledge that we are that's most in danger.
Yes.
Really, there's a lot of stuff that obviously can be done with automation, which is fantastic, and it will help navigate a lot of this. But like you said, that stuff that what does it mean isn't always captured through automated processes.
Right.
So I do think that that's kind of the biggest pitfall or the biggest area of concern.
So now, where you sit, do you get to see any of the newer tools that people are bringing to bear? Um, some of the new programs, a lot of AI driven
Mhm.
things that are trying to get after this thing?
Absolutely. I mean, we have an arm within Armanino as well that has we call it our AI lab
And I have to jump in
that
and
does a
say,
good
folks, I
portion.
did not know that beforehand. So, this is not a setup.
No, no, not a sponsor, nothing like that. Absolutely not. No, but there's a lot of people out there who are trying to get ahead of this
Yeah.
with some of these technology solutions. I think of again, kind of going back to distribution. I think of some of these tools that are used to in partnership with like a CRM that's able
Mhm.
to say, hey, this person usually orders this part around this time. We might want to reach out to them and we might want to kind of get something going here. Um, there's a lot of tools like that right now that
Yep.
we think of just how fast AI has grown in the last couple of years, and
Right.
companies are on top of it. Absolutely.
Yeah, that is heartening. And, you talked about the mentorship thing. So it's a people to people
Mhm.
knowledge capture. And I know, from that standpoint of the technology, there are a good number of companies working on more of the people to technology
Right.
knowledge capture.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that being said, how bullish are you as far as our ability to, maybe we've been caught a little off guard. If we're able to truly grapple with, okay, here's the scale of the problem, do you feel like we're going to be able to get out in front of it and get ahead of it?
No, Jim, I've learned one thing, and that's never bet against an American manufacturer.
Yep.
I think that we have the ability to get ahead out of any problem that we've got right now, and I think that this one is no different. I think that there's still time. I mean, I know 5 years seems like a short amount of time, um, but if you set these things into motion, right away, or heck, even within the next year, year and a half, you're going to still have time. You're going to not get hit with the wave of the tsunami overnight.
Yeah.
This is something that we know is coming. Think of it like a hurricane. You don't just
Right,
automatically
right.
you don't just automatically leave. You have time to prepare, and it's a very similar situation, I think.
That's a very good point. Yeah, even if you're still a little behind the curve on the scale of the problem and how to get after it, you're absolutely right. Everyone is aware, and
Right.
so everyone is thinking about it.
Mhm.
And I love the hurricane analogy. Yeah, hopefully we can prepare much better than we did for Helene, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Um, and I will share. I do the Forbes writing, so I've had the opportunity to write about some companies doing this very thing. So a good example is there's a company called Pico MES that captures basically the job work instructions, and then it actually integrates the tools you use for that job into the control system. So it's
Mhm.
telling the operator what to do and how to use the tool and what tool to use when. To me, that's just a great example. Another one, there's a company up in Canada called Contextair that uses AI driven programming to basically know a machine and the operator running it and be able to tell that person, okay, you ran into a problem. Here's your next step to do to get yourself out of the problem.
Absolutely. And even if you look at more of the back end, the back office kind of aspects, things like HR, for example, a lot of
Yes.
companies right now are going and they're taking like a handbook and they're establishing it through an LLM or a chatbot,
Yep.
essentially. So you could ask that chatbot any HR questions, which frees up that department to focus on some of these things like training, which is going to be absolutely paramount when we come a little bit further in the future here with, like I said, those workforce challenges.
I feel like you've been doing all kinds of homework to know what to tell me to make me happy because, and so many times I've said that there's all this focus on the automation of the shop floor, the process itself, and so many people miss that there's a whole bunch of automation on hand for that back office, for the office business processes, right?
Absolutely, and don't get me wrong, the shop floor automation is very important,
For
but I
sure.
think that
Yep.
again, like you said, the back office just gets overlooked so much, and there are
Yeah.
so many processes that are just primed for automation back there. Everything from, I mean, gosh, things like billing and shipping and collections and everything like that just is prime for those technology tools.
In your experience, because you talked about being part of like ERP implementations and things like that, is there an element of that, and I guess it's kind of two-pronged in my mind. One is people have some of these solutions in place and they've had them for a while, an ERP
Yeah,
system or something like that, and it's not quite doing the job, but they're not gonna try to add to it or change it, so they miss out. Or, people who have particular things that they need and the ERP doesn't have a solution for it, and they don't understand. They can go do add-ons and standalone pieces of software that'll solve those problems. How much do you see of that around people not being aware of the resources and solutions that are already out there for them?
Oh, I think that's extremely common. I think that
Yeah,
people think that they've got their situation and that's all that they can do. But that could not be further from the truth. There are so
yeah,
many bolt-on solutions for almost every ERP,
yep, yep.
and being
That's a
able
great point.
to implement it is not nearly as much of a lift as people think either.
Well, and of course, anyone who's been through an ERP implementation
Oh,
gets a little gun shy, I'm sure.
absolutely. I mean, a full ERP implementation, that's work.
Yeah,
Nobody's gonna try and sugarcoat that one for sure.
right,
But some of
right.
these bolt-on solutions are nowhere near as difficult as your full ERP transitions.
Yep. Well, and that's a great point. I mean, these bolt-ons, because they're much smaller and because they're specifically focused on a problem you're trying to solve, it's both easier to do and you've got more motivation to do it, right?
Right, exactly. You can see immediate results well, maybe not immediate, but you can see results close enough to immediate when
Yeah.
you do things like that,
Yeah.
for sure.
Good deal. Any other thoughts around things people in manufacturing in industry ought to be thinking about to try to get out ahead of the problem?
I think that one of the big things is going to be your recruiting. You need to find a way to put more candidates through your recruiting funnel, and be that partnering with a local trade school, or finding alternative sources of new applicants. Jim, I know you had a podcast a couple days ago about previously incarcerated individuals. Things like
Yeah.
that is a fantastic opportunity to be able to help combat this problem. Everybody right now in the country is facing issues hiring. That's just the case right now. But getting creative with some of these solutions is going to be what sets your business apart. And frankly, when it comes to the silver tsunami, if you do everything right, like I said earlier, you're not going to notice the silver tsunami, but your competitors will. Your
Yep.
competitors who aren't doing anything are going to get left in the dust, and this is going to give you time to be able to innovate and really propel your business forward while other people are treading water.
That's another great point. One I hadn't even thought of is, people are always talking about that point of differentiation and they're thinking about product, but
Right.
process can do that as well.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Before we wrap up, then going back to Armanino, what are the big opportunities that you guys see in the future for your business?
Oh my gosh, there's so much. I think one of the big things that we're looking at right now is finding new ways to incorporate AI in some of these manufacturing spaces. I know obviously everybody is working on AI to some aspect or another, but one of the things that we do that some of the other people might not is that we look at the problem and we try and solve the problem kind of agnostic of the solution. We don't have a certain product that we're trying to match to your problem because we understand that everything's different. Every company that we talk to is going to be completely different, and that's the whole reason that we have this manufacturing arm, is to be able to apply a different lens with some of the industry expertise here. So we're definitely looking at AI as a huge option. But like you said earlier as well, we're really trying to look to those back office automation solutions as well. We think that that's going to be really paramount for a lot of these people's success here during the upcoming workforce issues.
I couldn't agree more. Yep. And it's really kind of the all hands on deck. You can't just settle
Right.
in on one part of your business, right?
For sure. For sure.
Good. Anything else we haven't hit on to jump in with the final thoughts here?
I think we've covered a lot, and I think that that's pretty
Yeah.
much. I think that's pretty much everything that I had to say.
Okay.
By all means, though, if anybody wants to chat anymore, I am more than happy to have a conversation with anybody when it comes to all of this really interesting stuff. But thank you so much again, Jim, for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Yep. Yeah. So Colin's out there on LinkedIn. Look him up there. You can connect and dive into more details to your heart's content. But yeah, thank you, Colin. This was incredibly informative, and I love the optimism.
Well,
I probably tend the other way, so I guess opposites attract.
the world tends to be the opposite. So
Right,
if
right.
somebody is positive, then maybe we'll float to the right direction, right?
But you're not the first one to say never bet against America. I'm right
Hey,
there with you. So
absolutely,
we
absolutely.
should have a club.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I'll join for sure.
All
We can
right.
get.
Thanks again, Colin. And of course, as
Thank you,
always,
Jim.
thanks to those of you in the audience. You are why we're here. And, to me, Colin brought so many useful and obviously timely ideas for you guys to think about. And, I can't promise that everyone coming here is going to have things as useful or as timely, but they're all going to be at least a little useful and timely. So we're here every Tuesday and now pretty much every Thursday. Lots of popularity for the show, which is wonderful. And so until that next show that you need to tune in for, I'm Jim Vanosky from Manufacturing Talks, signing off. So long.
Thanks for tuning in to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vanosky. Watch for new episodes dropping every Tuesday. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.